Tell me when to start.
Go ahead.
I want a child is conceived for the first 3 months. The heart is in the center. And after that, the heart starts to go into the left field. The heart is the core of all things. The quicker we understand what's going on, and the quicker we change, the quicker we'll have what is considered heaven on earth. We don't have to know that heaven, but we can have the conditions of heaven where we are now. We stay here. We don't go any place. But in order to get there, it's a job. And we can get there only through our so-called chakras. And the chakras, the heart chakra, where the heart is in the left side, must come back to the center. Back to the center. Not the left anymore, but back to the center. And when it comes back to the center, then we have an organ that is complete. We do these things because of our structure. And structure determines function. And within us, the heart has gone into left field. It's way out in left field. So all of us are. The heart should be directly in the center. Like the center. So we see some of these brothers, pictures where the heart is directly into the center. That's where it belongs. Not there. And for the heart to move back to where it was at one time, it was there. It's going to take some time and change it. So you hear or you feel the heart beating. In a very, very rapid manner. Just relax. Because you are making a change. So I'm warning you what to feel or what not to feel. But the wisdom for transformation.
You want some Swiss chard?
There we go, I did it.
What?
You want some Swiss chard?
Nothing.
Could you guys hear that, Nancy and Phil?
Yes.
All right, cool. Okay, Fernando will be the featured speaker. The floor is open for whoever would like to speak. All right, I'll say something. Ryan Patrick Corey, chiropractor, Jersey City, New Jersey. That video is really what I feel is going on right now, especially with chiropractic. We're helping people start to sense the heart in the center. And for some people, that's going to really scare them. Other people, they're going to embrace it. Now, the people that are afraid of it, it's just going to be pure pain and terror for them. And who won't embrace it, it's going to be pure terror and pain. But the ones who do embrace the heart, the sensation, the heart and the center, they will start to feel things, but like he said, Pasquale says, they'll realize there's wisdom coming from it, and they'll allow themselves to go through it. And in this time, that's what we really need, and that's what chiropractic is doing. And it'll probably take the end of this year to get people to calm down, but you'll see that will happen. That's all I have to say. Anyone want to ask me anything?
Ryan,
Bill?
I agree wholeheartedly, but the question is, if only 10% of the population receives chiropractic care, how can we create a calm, peaceful environment when 90% of the people are still in that state of fear, trepidation, angst? You know, how do we do that? How do we get to those people through chiropractic?
They'll see that 10% that's doing well, and they'll say, what are they doing? And I think way more of them will start doing chiropractic. We're going to switch those numbers around to 90% receiving chiropractic. Anyone would like to ask me anything? Anyone else?
Do you think that shift will be soon?
It's already happened. It's happened already. We're just sensing it now. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Got for me. The floor's open. Whoever would like to come up. Anyone? Or Zoom people, you can speak as well. Phil Chemay.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to be back. I was planning on coming out tonight, but the inclement weather and other factors precluded me from doing such a thing. Having said that, it's nice to be here, and it's funny, it's unbelievable, there's no coincidences in the world. I was actually thinking about the heart tonight, and I said, what can I talk about? And I came to the realization, I think I might have mentioned this in the past, that everyone is right from their own perspective, no matter how crazy they might sound to us. Whatever your political affiliation, it doesn't matter. One side or the other sounds always crazy to the other side. But having said that, I came to the realization that no matter what is said or done, from that person's perspective is right. Those people are right, I'm right, everybody's right. But nobody, as Pat was talking about, is correct. And the word correct comes from two words, cor, which means heart, and rectus, which means upright, straight, not to the left. Or, you know, it's not wanting, or it's not biased or leaning to the left. So until we get heart-centered, or that heart upright, as Pat was talking about, then the person would be correct, not right. Right is a form of judgment, that, oh, you're right, I'm wrong. There's a form of judgment here. But if we start to understand that from every individual on this planet, from their perspective, everybody is right, no matter how crazy they sound. But nobody, including me, even what I'm saying right now, is correct. My heart is not upright yet, but I'm working on it through service, through chiropractic, and I also receive those adjustments. So I just wanted, it was very interesting that that's the topic you picked tonight. Serendipity, I don't know, but it was amazing. And I thank you for playing that video. It reminded me to keep on that search to be correct and stop trying to be right, because obviously I can't convince anyone because they're not coming from my perspective. So don't argue with anyone, whether it's politics, I don't care what it is, don't argue. Even if it's medicine, if they want to take medicine, and listen, I'm talking for myself, because I always argue with people when they're doing medicine. I say, why are you doing that when there's a better alternative? I got to remember, from their perspective, they're right. From mine, they're wrong. But of course, from their perspective, I'm wrong. So we have to stop looking at what's right or wrong, and we have to see, is this person correct? And you know how you tell? They say nothing. They just do. Like you said, Brian, these people will see our people walking upright with their heart in the center, and then they'll say, I want what he's got. And that's all I have to say.
Anyone like to ask Phil Chimay anything? Anyone? Anyone? One more time. All right, Phil, thank you very much. The clap for Phil. All right, the floor is open for whoever would like to come up. Or we have Nancy if you want. Alex.
Hey everybody, Alex Wilkowitz, chiropractor in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Last week I hit sort of a milestone in my journey as a chiropractor. It's 25 years since I got out of school and got licensed, so that's pretty exciting. I didn't really notice any big change that week, but it's still amazing how much time it's been. You know, I was thinking about what Phil said about being correct and arguing with people. Earlier in my career, I think I would have said a lot more to people, and now I just listen. And today was interesting. It really is, there are those times you really feel like a shift. I had more people today just get on the table and not say too much, which is really great. And there was a lot less conversation, which was nice. It was a lot more centered, correct. So, cool stuff.
That's it, Alex? All right, anyone like to ask Senior Alex anything? Anyone? Anyone? Who's that? Phil Chimay.
Phil?
Well, Nancy had her hand up first.
Nancy, you go.
Okay. How did you celebrate the 25 years?
I was in the office seeing people.
No, but I mean, you didn't have a party or anything to celebrate?
No, I kind of just celebrated in my own way.
Okay, you owe yourself a celebration.
All right, Phil.
You said that not a lot of talking went on. They just got on the table and you gave them the adjustment and not much was said. Could you give us an example? What would a typical transaction between you and a patient, what would be said that now you're not saying?
I think maybe certain ideas about, certain strong feelings chiropractors have about a lot of things, like medicine, like even topics you shouldn't discuss in an office, like politics, and just the general behavior of, people coming and saying things which almost feel like an insult if you're like big in the chiropractic, like they'll almost come in with their child who doesn't get adjusted and say things like, you better be good or Dr. Alex is gonna adjust you. And there's a time when I would have probably said something. Now I just smile and, they came in, which is always an honor that they come in and give you their trust to help them. So that's where they're at.
Anyone else want to ask Alex anything? Anyone? One more time, anyone? All right, Alex, thank you very much. Excellent. All right, go ahead. For whoever would like to come up. Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca, chiropractor in Nyack, New York. And yeah, just want to say thank you, everyone. This group is very supportive and helps me stay grounded to serving people from the heart and not being combative. It's the themes that everybody's talking about. It is exactly why I stay coming here, to remember to go in on Monday and serve from my heart wherever anybody comes from, no matter what they're coming in for. And I'm grateful to be able to do that and have this group remind me to stay focused on that. The adjustments are better and I enjoy myself and the interactions more. So thank you, everyone.
Anyone like to ask Rebecca anything? Anyone? Phil.
Forgive me, I never heard your story of how you became a chiropractor or why you became a chiropractor.
So my dad always wanted me to be a chiropractor. He loves
Really?
chiropractic. Yeah, he's been going since he's a teenager. He took me from a young age. And then I never thought I was smart enough to be a chiropractor, and I really was not confident. And my cousin, who's a wonderful chiropractor over in California, really just pushed me to go to school. And I went to hear a chiropractor speak, and I heard him talk about the philosophy and how chiropractors serve people, and speaking a lot of the Green Book philosophy, and I just said, okay, I'm going to chiropractic school. And then I drank the Kool-Aid and I never looked back.
Anyone ask Rebecca anything? Anyone? One more time. Anyone? Anyone? All right, Rebecca,
Thank
next
you.
one. All right, the floor is open. Do you want to say anything? No? All right. Nancy Brown.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm so glad you brought that video, Brian. Actually, the Heart Center and the discipline that I'm in the Kabbalistic studies corresponds with the middle pillar, and which is the spine, and Tiferet, which is the highest level you can go to in a physical body. And what's going on in the outside world, whether you talk about politics or not in the office, please God you don't, but people are bringing it in anyway, and they're exposed to those polarities anyway, which is pulling them off center big time. And it's very clear to me that chiropractors, and I feel like a broken record when I say this, chiropractors are being called upon more and more and more to stand in that center and to love no matter what. The more you can love, which is the healing energy that you bring in, no matter what way you language it, whether you call it a tone or a vibration. Pasquale had different ways of talking about it. The love, the healing energy that comes in with the chiropractic adjustment, it's more than even the physical adjustment. It's so profound, and it is so life-changing, and it is so needed right now in this crazy world. The more I'm exposed to the medical professions, even ways of talking to people is amazing for me. And the last thing I want to say is, I always joke around with the Almighty, and I say, when I reincarnate, please make me a chiropractor, And Pasquale always said to me, well, you are a chiropractor. You get people straightened out, so you're a chiropractor. But I think that if we can stay in that love, and if we can somehow find a way to, I always say this, we need more chiropractors going to chiropractic school and getting out there. And we need them for people who can afford it and for people who can't afford it. Chiropractic needs to be the healing modality moving into this new birth, this new world. This healing light has to come in, the love has to come in. We're not going to make it otherwise. So any way you can support chiropractic schools, chiropractic colleges, chiropractic learning, it's really very important. Even if you think it's not, it's, I think about it, I'm thinking a lot about this week about donating money to chiropractic colleges for scholarships to people who come from, poor neighborhoods who can't afford this extraordinary expenses and end up with debts from chiropractic school. And then they have to make decisions if they can't work with certain populations because they can't pay, and it's terrible. We just need more well-trained chiropractors out there, and I'm putting it out there. We need the love, we need the people living in the love.
Anyone like to ask Nancy anything? Anyone? Anyone? Phil?
It sounds admirable and it's a great thing, but the problem that even Pat mentioned years ago, that as long as the CCE has control of these chiropractic colleges, they are diluting this wonderful, wonderful, I don't want to call it profession, vocation, down into a medical, pseudo-medical. A lot of these kids coming out of schools are afraid to adjust people because they're told, you better go ask a medical doctor before you touch a patient. I mean, and I understand what you're saying, Nancy, and it's admirable, but the problem is that we got to be careful where we send these kids. Because, yeah, we want them to turn out to be great chiropractors, but unfortunately the education level is not what it used to be.
What are you asking her, Phil?
What?
What are you asking her?
I'm asking her, do you think it's a good idea to donate a scholarship to these schools that are putting out pseudo-medics?
Obviously, you have to be very careful with money, whatever you do, and to do it ethically and where you know it's being used correctly. But I also believe that the structures of the world can change, that the agencies that accredit places can change, and we need to think in a positive way about that and think about how we can make that happen. And I look at that in my little world in education systems. We all know the education system is really suffering right now. How do we change it? Where do we find that crack in the sidewalk that we can find that leverage point to change that? So it may look that way right now, but why couldn't there be an alternative accrediting body? Why couldn't there be a change of leadership? Why couldn't there be other ways of doing things, and a wake-up call in some way? I don't know the politics of it, but I'm just saying, look at it now, but look at it what it could be 10 years from now.
Anyone else
Or
like
hopefully tomorrow.
Anyone else like to ask Nancy anything? Anyone? Anyone? All right, let's clap for Nancy, everybody. So now, we're going to bring up the featured speaker, chiropractor from Brooklyn, Fernando Mendez.
All right, I need a couple of seconds here. I gotta get my props out. Over our spine.
He has a bag
I
here.
got a bag full of stuff. I got a handout. People, your prizes. You're in charge of handing these out.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. I think I'm ready. When Brian's ready.
Okay, everyone has it.
All right, guys. Good evening. So I handed out a little information to everybody. You guys at home, you can look up J.M.W. Turner. That's J.M.W. and the last name is Turner, T-U-R-N-E-R. So that's the image they're looking at here. I'm going to stand here, Brian. Okay.
Did you show it to them? Oh, you told him to look it
I told him to look him up. You can look at any image. He's got the same style throughout. It's not one particular picture you have to look at for him. It just made me think, last time I was up here I was talking about feeling this connection of what Dee Dee talked about, connecting the physical with the spiritual. And I was saying it was different than me just studying it like anatomically or the physiology and trying to map it out for myself that way. But literally myself in between these spiritual forces and the physical person on the table. And as I was thinking of that for this talk, I realized, well, I think that's the big idea of chiropractic. I asked some chiropractors about the big idea, and they said, well, that's a BJ thing. He wrote a book about it. The way I remembered it for my studies was Dee Dee had the big idea too. And I don't know, somebody told me a story somewhere I heard it where you would go to school back in those days, and it wasn't like nowadays. DDB giving you a class. As opposed if you just said, you raise your hand, and you call and you go, what's going on? He's like, I got the big idea. He'd be like, great, here's your certificate, go out there, get at them, I don't know how true that is. That's the thought I had in my head. But when I looked at that connection, I said, that's the big idea of chiropractic. Now here I put a quote from Genesis 3:22. And there it says, and the Lord God said, the man now has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life, and eat and live forever. In light of that quote, I was thinking, those old-time chiropractors were probably more familiar, I think, with the Bible than we generally are nowadays. We have a lot of education, way past anything they had anatomically, the physiology, all that stuff. But I think they probably had a better connection to that stuff. So when they got the big idea in chiropractic, in chiropractic we say the vertebral column is the tree of life. That's a direct reference to what's here. I think those old timers didn't need much, man. They could see a little bit of the anatomy. They had those ideas, biblical ideas, and they could see once they started putting their hands on people's spine that things really started working, man. And those guys were on fire, and they did, a great service, bringing our profession forward, going to jail, all the hardships they went through. I think once somebody said to Pasquale, now, you guys went to school for a few years. It was very affordable. All the kids now, they have all this debt. And Pasquale said, we just had it as hard as you guys, Pasquale said he got a little bit, people laid off him a little bit because he was a veteran, so they didn't mess with him as much. He was from the neighborhood and things like that. But obviously we know of guys who've gone to jail and stuff like that. Imagine that. And they had that conviction of their courage, and they didn't have nearly probably the scientific backgrounds that we have. But let's get back, I'm going to get back to the idea of the vertebral column as the tree of life. All chiropractors here, man. There's 33 vertebra, 33 bones. There's 33 bones. I think everybody here knows that. And it's a hollow structure. It protects the spinal cord. And that traditionally, and it has movement. So traditionally we say the spinal cord comes out the nerves, there's movement. It functions for the protect, but it also has to move, and that causes issues, traditionally chiropractic. And that is a part of the story. That movement aspect of the spine, I brought another little prop, and this one just lays around my office, and I don't use it much. I know my wife's wanted to throw it away, and the cleaning lady probably too. And it doesn't look like anything I would break out and show people, but I look at it sometimes, and I'm pretty sure this is from Pasquale's yard, and we drew this on here for maybe a self-center one day, or something he wanted to talk to me about. But he was comparing it to the motion of the spine, and how this is a hollow tube, and he was showing me. He just drew a line. There's a line here in black drawn down the middle, just a vertical line, let's say. And he would say when that spine moves, if you want to understand it, if it rotates this way, if it moves this way, if you can imagine that being the spine, that's how the vertebral column moves. And I think about, I'll have people on the table, and I'm getting in there, and they'll ask me, do you feel anything? And I'm like, I feel a lot of things. So I at that point I can have a moment of just being a little irritated. I know I have to get over that kind of stuff. They're probably just saying, yeah, you're probably tense or something would be enough to satisfy them. But I brought this out just to show that movement, because even sometimes I look and I go, wow, or really when you start working with that vertebral column, you realize how all the parts are connected and all that motion in there. So this is always a nice little thing for me, and we hadn't seen something like this down here or over here. Another massive function of this vertebral column, it gives us an upright posture. That upright posture, as we talk about structure function, is critical for our consciousness. Obviously, we're lifted off the ground, we're up here, we're not down on the ground focusing on what's below, but we're brought up here. And in conjunction with that, it frees our hands. And we can create things. And that is also kind of a measure of the level of consciousness we can attain. Looking at that, you realize, well, what we do as chiropractors is so precious because we've trained our hands to do what we know what we do. Even if people have no idea what we do. We know what is possible in this vertebral column. The more you see it, you go, what you learn at school about it rotating this way or that way, it can move incomprehensible ways, really, that you would never be able to visualize unless you felt it, I think, or probably unless you felt it and had quite a bit of training. But I don't want to be too highfalutin. I know last time I was here, I was talking about the art of chiropractic, and my friend over there asked, "So you're saying you're an artist?" And we kept talking, and I was going, "Man, I don't want to walk around saying I'm an artist. I was like, I'm a chiropractor." And anybody, you said, Becca, like you were like, "Oh, I'm not smart enough to become a chiropractor." I don't think it's a very exclusive, company. There's so many chiropractors, as you well know now, all kinds and shapes, and we need everybody. And to keep it simple, Didi said what he does, what a chiropractor did was rack the bones into position. So he wasn't trying to be too fancy, but that word sounds great. And I had to look it up to make sure, but racking, I think of racking, I think of the billiards table. And when they put those balls in, they go, and you hear that sound, and I had to say, wow, I looked it up on YouTube. Go ahead and look it up on YouTube, and there's one video that you hear that sound. And that sounds pretty close to what the feeling sensation you get from those bones. And when I was thinking about chiropractic and art, I think about how many people are on the YouTube watching chiropractic adjustments. Because I know they come into my office, and it's like I think they think they're in a YouTube video. Because I'll see them not interacting with me, but interacting with like whoever came with them. Like they're having like this crazy experience at the chiropractor. But it goes to show how much people can enjoy chiropractic, even through YouTube. And I know that's a big thing. That's a big hobby of people's. But breaking out the vertebral column, and you don't need me to give you an anatomy lesson. You can just look at a picture. But it is quite a complicated, hard structure in us. And it lends itself to like the biblical idea of this is the temple of the living God. And that's how we should approach it. And again, it says in that quote in Genesis 3:22 that he must not be allowed to reach out his hand. But I think in chiropractic we are now allowed. Time moves forward. That was a long time ago, and perhaps we weren't ready, but the season has changed. And I'm going to go through that right now. First, I was going to take the little spine model here again. And Brian and I are pretty familiar with this thing, but I don't know if you guys I think Alex is, but have you seen this?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you haven't done it at home, if you tap a tuning fork and put it anywhere on this plastic spine, you're going to feel quite a resonance. Come over here, Amanda. You have never seen this. Come over here and feel this. And you can confirm this. So you can just touch it anywhere, and you can feel that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's vibrating. So when we say chiropractic and tone, going through these bones, you can really feel it with this little experiment. So I was talking about history changing. I've been looking at the story of man from the Bible. And the story there is, there's a fall. Shortly after the fall, God says, I'm only giving you guys my spirit. I'm not giving you guys my spirit this whole time. You're only going to get 120 years. The story continues. You get a prophet like Ezekiel, who I've read up here before, Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14. He talks about the bones coming alive in the future. And there they talk about the bones rattling. So another great word sound of things happening. In the Bible story, the Christ appears. he conquers death as a man. And Pasquale said, we don't go any place. And it made me think of this at that point. So Christ comes, he conquers that. People are like, all right, let's do it. We're going to conquer everybody. And he takes off. And they're like, what? I thought we were going to do something here. I thought you were going to take us with us. You're going to conquer some people. But that didn't happen. They were left here with the Holy Spirit, who serves to us as a comforter. And that's what chiropractic is. It provides comfort to people with that tone. And when I look at that tone, I think back again to Genesis, where God says, he says things. There's a tone coming from his word that sets things in motion. He says, let there be light. That's a tone. Now, getting away from the Bible, you go to like a yogic tradition, and they have the that tone. So for somebody who's unfamiliar with chiropractic or these ideas in chiropractic that we'll express down here, I keep saying down here, even though we're in Jersey City, I'm used to being in that basement. I just compare it to nowadays in the West, it seems like yoga is pretty popular. In certain segments, people are doing lots of yoga. I'm thinking about the motions they do. They're supposed to realign the chakras, realign the body. So the ideas that we express in chiropractic are kind of being accepted from an Eastern tradition brought over here. So it's really not too far-fetched that we, in chiropractic, have come up with our own thoughts about how alignment could possibly work through the body. In the next page of my little thing here, I put down a quote from Didi. He writes, as a means of relieving suffering and disease, allopathy, homeopathy, osteopathy, and now chiropractic have each in turn improved upon its predecessor. The latter of all the others is entitled to the seat of honor and distinction. But as soon as the human mind is capable of absorbing a still more refined and advanced method, and human aspirations demand it, it will be forthcoming, and I hope to be the medium through which it will be delivered to the denizens of the earth. That's from his book in 1910, page 15. So those are quite lofty words. But kind of what I'm explaining here to you tonight kind of makes sense. This makes more sense when you look at chiropractic in the biblical tradition. And certainly Didi was familiar with the Bible. Chiropractic, I would say, would come out of that Western tradition for sure. But really the importance of grasping the uniqueness of chiropractic. One other thing I wanted to post there with the yogic thing is, obviously yoga is way bigger than all the motions they do, but I just think of how their practice is very by themselves, which is great. You can really help yourself doing these poses. But as a chiropractor, I see how much I need help. And how little awareness of my own vertebral column I have. Like everybody else, I can feel a pain here or this or that. What's going on? I'm not sure. And many people come to me who telling me what's wrong with them, have come to me and telling me, this guy told me this is going on, I know this is it. I'm going, okay, let me see. When I see the yogics, I feel like there's only so far you can do working on yourself. Chiropractic, having somebody else, or just saying, hey, I need a hand, can you take a look at me and help me out, you know? Made me think of when I was getting into chiropractic, or just life in general. I always refer to this idea from Buddhism that I was familiar with at the time. They had this idea, I think it was called Mahanya Bodhisattva. It was about like the Buddhas who looked at, either you had a big boat or a little boat. The little boat, I saved myself. On the big boat, I'm trying to get everybody on. And I feel like chiropractic, where you have to ask other people for help and admit you need some help, and we work on each other, is kind of like a big boat aspect. Like, we're all in this together. We need each and everybody's perspective to help out. Like, I cannot just be like, this is what's my problem. I need help. Help me out. Look at me. See what's going on with my back. All right. So next part I'm going to go into, I have this picture here for everybody to look at. So the Christ with the heart in the middle. There was a little bit of coordination. Brian, I think I kind of mentioned to Brian I was going to be talking about this, so it wasn't all just coincidence. But it was great he had that video up. Let me flip through my notes here for a second. Okay, so I'm using this picture pretty much something we touched upon. Something I think is real. I was thinking, what is like the meat of all this stuff that we can talk about? I was like, the real one meat is the idea of this metamorphosis. I don't know what everybody else is thinking. I think people think, if that guy looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's really healthy. That's kind of a symbol of health and well-being. As opposed to what we're looking at here, this guy with his heart in the middle. And I should start off, everybody here knows, but in case somebody's on YouTube, when I look at a picture like this, and Pasquale mentioned it, obviously you're going to associate it with a certain religion, but Pasquale, what I would say is, just replace, you can put your face in this picture, okay? That's what we're talking about. Catholicism meant universal back in the time. This isn't like an exclusive thing. So the heart in the middle, about the metamorphosis. Some of it has already been said here. But the key thing is to remember is when Brian has the picture of here, of him adjusting, I think Harvey Lidler, the adjustment went to the fourth dorsal, which traditionally in chiropractic we associate with the heart. Bob Wadden let us know in the last week that it took 2 adjustments for Harvey Lidler to get his hearing back. So thank you, Bob. So this heart getting into the middle is also kind of the idea of our sanctification, this process we're going through in life. You could also think of it as a theosis, a deification. It's the good news. You're going to be atoned, you're going to be one with God. In the Psalm I wrote down here, 82, 6-7, it says, "Ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High." In John 14:12 it says, "They will do even greater thing than these." So that is the good news, and you can find some great preaching on it that get you really fired up. I recommend it. I'm going to add to that good news in a little bit. Right now, I just want to go through, I looked up Sacred Heart of Christ, and there was a million pictures, but I was really thinking about this one because Pasquale spoke about this one in particular. What he said about this one in particular, I could not find, but the text around it, around the outside of this picture, is from Matthew 11:29, and it says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, because I am meek and humble of heart." I think all this stuff is really important for us chiropractors. The first part, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. So I kind of been in that process, just reading the New Testament and seeing that this guy is out there healing people all the time. I didn't realize how much healing he was doing. And he goes up to people and he says, "Your faith has healed you." And I was recently listening to a great chiropractor, Dr. Pete Goldman, and he was talking a lot about faith. He does his own technique, you can look him up. And I can't tell you every single thing Pete knows about chiropractic. You can find out what he has to say. But the one thing he was talking about faith and how he saw 85% of his people were non-musculoskeletal. And I was like, well, there is the proof. You know, this guy, his faith in chiropractic is bringing these people in. And he has a great story. He's been brought up in chiropractic since he was a kid, so that's great. And then I was listening to another chiropractor who I went to school with, who actually hosted Pasquale when he was in Davenport. He just recently came through my office, and he was talking also about ideas and building things. He was talking about the architecture of life. Dr. Dibley, you can look him up too, about the thoughts producing things. So Christ had a lot of things where he said the person needed faith. And I was thinking, I was going to talk about faith, and I was like, I'm going to go up there and talk about faith. What can I talk about these people about faith for? And then I looked up the definition, I said loyalty, and I was like, oh man, I could identify with loyalty. That was the first definition. I was like, oh, well, I could talk about that. And then one of the popular definitions of faith from Hebrews 11:1 is it's evidence, it's substance. So there is a structure there, something physical to hold on to. And again, I see chiropractic as providing that connection between the physical and the spiritual. And what I've talked about tonight is a little bit more of the substance and evidence, something to the part of the physical with the spine and its motion. The next part says, because I am meek and humble of heart. The meek part always bothered me. I didn't know what was going on with the meek part. I didn't know if that was good. But when I look at that heart in the middle, it's different than a heart that's off to left field where we follow our passions. I mean, it's great to have people who are passionate about things, and we can admire them about that passion. Sometimes it doesn't sustain them, or sometimes that passion goes too far, they fly off the handle, and some people say, you should have thought for a second. And that's really a key, just that the heart cannot be just following its animal passions. It should be connected to the mind and some thought. And the second part, because I'm meek and humble of heart. The humble of heart, I think, is one of the keys to taking care of people. Just recognizing, my limited abilities. And anytime when I get a pitch, it's easier and easier for me just to call for help from whatever powers may be. Before I was just sweating things as a young chiropractor, just going, please, help me. And I certainly was helped along the way. I especially think about when you start out, you really don't know what you're doing. It's really just like a leap of faith, and I feel like I definitely had beginner's luck, I felt like, at the beginning of my career. And now I feel like I definitely get help when I ask for it. Jackie. And the last quote here is, it says, behold here the heart which loved mankind so deeply. And, he's pointing in the picture to his heart. So he's like, this is the main theme of this whole thing. This is, I should have talked about at the beginning, but he has the clouds underneath him. So this is like a spiritual person. He's got a massive aura around him. He's got the halo. So this is not a man just walking down the street every day. He's obviously some kind of spiritual entity. He's pointing to that heart, and I think it's key here is to see that all of us can have these brilliant ideas of what we're going to do and how we're going to go about doing it. I certainly do, but it has to come down to the doing part, in the heart, on the earth, doing the art. And that's when it gets really tricky there, The guy does have the thorns going into his heart. Nobody's saying it's going to be easy or comfortable. So that's the metamorphosis And yeah, the good news, the deification. We're gonna be like gods, but you know, there's more to the story. And I have this little picture. I've shown you guys the black and white version. I call that the chiropractic clock. It has the seasons. It says chiropractic, okay? And I put that there just to say that all this stuff is, we're still working in nature. I think we all know how nature works. We talked about it. Somebody mentioned it. Well, Brian did. We've already done these things, but the season still has to change. When the timer's right, everything will come into alignment, you can say. And I wrote down rest with a lot of S's, with 3 S's, signifying small sequential steps. The older I get, the more I realize there's less I can possibly do. So I need to take it easy, and I need to go do all the little steps. And I have to get rid of a lot of things if I'm going to go nice and easy and take the small sequential steps that I have to take. I have a quote here that I did not write down. Let me see. I think I was up here, I don't know when I was up here, talking about how people should take care of themselves, their health, and I found a quote from D.D. that just said, it was a biblical reference saying, take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And I think that's part of the rest aspect. Going through nature, when we feel all these aches and pains, I wrote down Psalm 38:6. It says, because of my sins, I am racked with pain. So as we go along this journey, being uncomfortable and that discomforts are bothering us, we kind of have to take it as like a nudge, trying to push us along in the right direction. We may be very uncomfortable, but it's urging us on. And I wrote down here, Mark 1:3, everyone must straighten out his life to be ready for the Lord's arrival. When I, you know, somebody might see that Lord's arrival and be thrown off. I just think to be your best, you must straighten out your life. And I think if you've got any self-help book, it would tell you, take responsibility for your life. And I'm going to leave you guys my final quote from the Bible. It said, from Isaiah 43, this is really, I thought this was a really good one for the chiropractors. One of the last times up here, I talked about Ezekiel, how it got me fired up. And I read this one. I was like, this could be a good theme. It says, make a road for the Lord through the wilderness. Make him a straight, smooth road through the desert. Fill the valleys, level the hills, straighten the crooked paths, and smooth off the rough spots in the road. And that indicates another part of the whole good news that might be a little bit not so fun, is that it all, in nature, takes labor. So, Pasquale would say, or many people say, it's all about love. And Pasquale, we've talked about down here, says it's about the labor to get through to that love. And it does take a lot of hard work to eliminate the obstacles. And there's plenty of work for us chiropractors to do. And I think we're getting our hands dirty, we're getting in there taking care of people, and then at some point, Pasquale said, is that things will just happen by thought. But first we have to go through this period where we're working with our hands, getting our hands dirty and laboring. And that is what I have to share.
I would like to ask Fernando anything. Anyone? Let me stand over here. Anyone? Phil Chimay.
Thank you for your insights. It was very, very well done. I got a lot out of it. I just have some things that I need clarification on. He said in the very beginning that the Lord said, they are one of us now. Unless he touched the tree of life, eternal or whatever. Something like that, correct?
Yes.
What is the difference between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And you said, oh, I'm sorry, and you said that the tree of life was analogous to the spinal column, correct?
That's one thing it could be analogous to, sure, yes. But as a
Okay.
chiropractor, the vertebral column is the tree of life.
Right. So what is then the difference between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge that it talks about?
You know, I'm not getting, I don't feel confident giving you a full answer from my knowledge, but what I see is the tree of knowledge of good and evil is somehow we got divided in two. There's black and white, the yin and the yang, and that's what we're seeing in nature. And the tree of life is that part where we get out of all that and we see immortality. How it all plays out exactly, you know, it's a little bit beyond me.
Anyone else like to ask Fernando anything? Anyone?
Is that all right, Phil?
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone?
Nancy.
Nancy Brown.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. This was very multifaceted and well thought out, so thank you. I just have a question for you, and it just occurred to me that, you know, sometimes we all have days where we are out of alignment. I mean, emotionally and so forth, you know, days that we don't feel like centered and grounded and all that good stuff that we would like to feel. So what do you do as a chiropractor when somebody comes in, they really, really need your help, and you're not there? Like, how do you get there quickly to help them?
I just try to get there. I mean, you know, I didn't talk at the beginning, but you know, you come down to South Center and you think about just what you can do with this chiropractic. How do I get there? Sometimes I gotta admit I don't, but I just do my best. I mean, there's times where I don't feel like it's, there's many times where I don't, not many times, but there's times when I know I'm not gonna be able to take care of this person, and I just have to let them go. So I just go with it. I just go step by step. Sometimes when I'm not feeling it, I just, what's the next thing I have to do with this person? You know, sometimes they're acting crazy or nothing, and I'm gonna put my hand here. I'm gonna put my hand here. After one thing after another, before I know it, I'm done, and they're walking out. If I really can get back into a line, you know? And sometimes it's pure chaos, and sometimes we just highlight those parts, which is okay because we make ourselves better, but most of the time just go step. Just, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And go through it like that.
Anyone else want to ask Fernando anything? Anyone?
Thank you, Fernando.
Anyone?
And I started praying more and asking for more help and stuff like that. That's something I didn't do before.
Phil Chimay.
You spoke about the metamorphosis a lot, which I agree with you. Now, is that exclusive to chiropractors, or?
No, I think it's universal. It's all of us. Everybody's going through a metamorphosis. Everybody's at some point. All humanity.
Anyone else like to ask Fernando or Phil? Go ahead.
A follow-up?
Yes.
Are there any other venues or practices or traditions that can help or assist in this metamorphosis?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's unlimited, you know, and you could come up with one today just saying, I'm going to bang my head off this wall until I get illuminated, and you might get there. But, you know, there's certain roads to Rome that are a little bit easier and other ones that might not be so easy, and you can go off the roads and go, you know, never find your way there. But chiropractic, especially coming down to South Center, is a good road to go down. It seems really something I can, to me, it's like proven for myself. You know, I prove to myself. And when I put all these pieces together, when it's just not science, when I can take science, when I can take theology or the spiritual world, when I can take just anatomy of a human body and put them all together, I get my proof that I would need. And some people just instantly get it, man. Some people don't need any, you know, I realize some people don't need any of they just get it. They live there. And, I'm always jealous of those people.
Anyone else like to ask Don Fernando anything? Yeah? Anyone? Anyone here? One more time. All right, Fernando. Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you.